Settle in and let this soothing Bible story guide you through the gentle lands of ancient Persia. Drift peacefully as we explore the wisdom of Cyrus, the quiet hope of the exiles, and the serene journey of God's people returning home. Allow the soft rhythms of history, faith, and gentle leadership to lull you into calm reflection and restful sleep. Long ago, in a land beyond the hills and deserts of Israel, there stretched a vast and gentle kingdom known as Persia. This was a place of wide plains and rolling hills, where the sunlight fell softly upon golden fields and sparkling rivers meandered quietly through the countryside. The air carried a gentle warmth, and the soft rustle of leaves whispered across gardens filled with fruit trees and fragrant flowers. In this calm and ordered land, people lived their days with careful rhythm and quiet purpose, tending their homes, their animals, and the gentle tasks of everyday life. Persia was not like a city filled with endless noise. Its villages were small and serene, built from stone and sun-baked clay, with narrow streets that wound softly between low homes. Children wandered slowly, their laughter light and delicate, chasing butterflies along the banks of clear streams. Farmers moved steadily through the fields, guiding oxen and ploughs in the calm of the morning sun, the steady rhythm of work blending with the quiet songs of birds overhead. Every corner of this land carried a sense of harmony, as though the earth itself had been arranged with care to soothe and sustain its people. Among the hills and rivers, great cities rose with graceful majesty, yet even these were filled with a quiet dignity rather than overwhelming noise or hurry. Palaces and courts glimmered in the light, their walls painted with soft colors and adorned with carefully crafted carvings that told stories of kings and wise men. The people of Persia moved with thoughtfulness, speaking gently and walking with a calm attention to one another. In the gardens that surrounded these cities, fountains trickled in delicate arcs, and birds perched on the branches of fruit trees, dipping down to sip the cool water. Even the air seemed to carry a sense of peace, a stillness that encouraged reflection and quiet joy. The empire was wide, stretching across rivers, valleys, and mountains, yet everywhere there was a common rhythm of life that brought comfort and order. Traders travelled slowly from village to village, carrying soft bundles of cloth, fragrant spices, and sweet dates. Their footsteps were careful, their voices gentle as they greeted friends along the road. Alongside them moved scholars and scribes, recording the stories of kings, the deeds of rulers, and the quiet acts of kindness among neighbors. These records were kept not in a rush, but with thoughtful care, as though each word had weight and meaning, and each day mattered deeply in the gentle unfolding of time. In the quiet gardens and soft courtyards of Persia, people found moments of rest and reflection. Women carried baskets of fruit from the trees, their movements slow and deliberate, enjoying the simple pleasure of the sun on their shoulders and the scent of flowers in the air. Men guided flocks of sheep or herds of goats through the pastures, the soft lowing of animals mingling with the whispers of the wind. Children paused along the riverside to watch the fish gliding under the surface of clear water, their small hands dipping into the cool flow. Every sight and sound in this land seemed to carry a gentle invitation to notice the beauty of the moment, to breathe slowly, and to move quietly through the day. Even in the larger cities, there was a sense of calm. Marketplaces were alive with soft chatter, the gentle shuffle of feet over stone paths, and the distant call of merchants offering goods. The air smelled faintly of sweet spices, baked bread, and fresh flowers from the gardens that lined the streets. Every sound seemed measured, every step deliberate, as if the people of Persia understood the value of patience and care. Here, culture flourished in quiet ways. Music was played softly on flutes and strings, and stories of old kings and distant lands were shared in gentle tones by storytellers who spoke with calm voices that invited listeners to imagine each scene in peace. Persia was also a land of wisdom and learning. Scholars studied the stars, noting their paths across the sky as the sun rose and set. Scribes carefully copied ancient scrolls, their hands steady and precise, ensuring that each letter was perfect. Temples and places of worship rose quietly, their courtyards offering spaces for reflection, prayer, and gentle meditation. The people honored their gods with calm devotion, carrying out their rituals in soft, deliberate movements that emphasized reverence and mindfulness rather than spectacle. The rivers of Persia carried life and tranquility. Gentle currents flowed past orchards and villages, reflecting the sky like glass. Boats moved slowly along their paths, oars dipping quietly into the water. Fishermen worked with steady patience, pulling in nets and releasing small fish back into the streams. Every ripple, every soft splash, added to the sense of calm that settled over the land, as if even the waters themselves were aware of the harmony of Persia. In this serene and majestic land, life unfolded like a slow and peaceful song. The sun rose over rolling hills and set behind distant mountains, casting soft golden light that lingered long into the evening. Birds sang quietly in the trees, and the scent of flowers and fresh bread drifted through the air. People moved with care, spoke with gentleness, and carried themselves with dignity and calm. Persia was a kingdom of order, beauty, and quiet reflection, a land where the rhythms of nature and the intentions of its people blended seamlessly, preparing the heart and mind for the gentle stories that were yet to unfold. From this land of calm order and quiet beauty arose a ruler whose name would be spoken gently through generations. His name was Cyrus, a king of Persia, known not for loud conquest alone, but for wisdom that moved steadily and with purpose. He did not rise in haste or chaos. His path unfolded slowly, shaped by patience, careful thought, and a sense of calling that reached beyond his own understanding. Cyrus grew into leadership during a time when kingdoms rose and fell like shifting sands. Yet his manner was different. He listened before he spoke. He observed before he acted. Those around him noticed that he carried himself with calm assurance, neither rushed nor careless, as though he understood that authority was something to be carried with steadiness rather than force. He learned the customs of his people and the lands beyond Persia, studying the needs of cities and the rhythms of life across his growing realm. As his power expanded, Cyrus did not rule with constant fear or cruelty. Instead, he sought order. Roads were kept safe. Laws were organized with care. Local traditions were respected rather than erased. This approach brought stability to the empire, allowing daily life to continue with peace rather than unrest. Farmers returned to their fields. Craftsmen worked without interruption. Families gathered in the evenings without dread of sudden upheaval. Under his leadership, the vastness of Persia felt held together by quiet intention. Long before Cyrus himself understood the full meaning of his role, his name had already been spoken by the God of Israel. Through the prophet Isaiah, generations earlier, the Lord had called Cyrus by name, describing him as a shepherd who would carry out divine purpose. These words rested silently in history until the moment they were fulfilled, like seeds waiting patiently beneath the soil. Cyrus was not raised among the people of Israel, yet his life moved along a path that would one day touch theirs deeply. When Cyrus became king over the lands that included Babylon, he inherited a world shaped by exile and longing. Among the many peoples living within his empire were the descendants of Judah, taken far from Jerusalem years before. They lived quietly in a foreign land, carrying memories of their city, their temple, and their God. Their prayers rose softly, night after night, shaped by hope rather than despair. Cyrus was a man attentive to counsel and reflection. Ancient records were brought before him. Stories of conquered nations and displaced peoples passed through his courts. Among these accounts were the writings of the Hebrew prophets, words preserved carefully through years of waiting. As Cyrus listened, something stirred within him. The message spoke of a God who ruled over kings and kingdoms, who guided history with intention and mercy. In time, Cyrus recognized that his authority was not merely his own. The God of heaven, as Cyrus would later proclaim, had entrusted him with responsibility. This understanding did not arrive with thunder or fear. It settled quietly, like evening light across the hills. With this clarity came resolve, calm and unwavering. Rather than tightening control, Cyrus chose release. Rather than demanding loyalty through force, he extended permission. He issued a decree that echoed gently across the empire, allowing the people of Judah to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the house of the Lord. The words were clear and generous. Those who wished to go were free to go. Those who remained were encouraged to support them. Sacred vessels once taken from the temple were returned with care. This decision was not made in haste. It reflected Cyrus's nature as a ruler who valued restoration over ruin. He understood that peace grew stronger when people were allowed to honor their faith and rebuild what had been lost. His leadership showed restraint, wisdom, and trust in a purpose greater than personal ambition. Throughout his reign, Cyrus continued to govern with this steady spirit. He appointed leaders thoughtfully and allowed regions to flourish according to their customs. His rule brought a rare sense of continuity across many lands. Even those far from Persia felt the effects of his measured hand, as order replaced uncertainty and hope found room to grow. The figure of Cyrus stands quietly in the biblical record, not surrounded by constant drama, but marked by significance. He was a king who moved history forward without loud proclamation, whose decisions opened paths long closed, whose authority became a vessel for divine intention. His life reminds the heart that guidance can come gently, that power can rest calmly, and that even those outside the covenant may be used to carry mercy into the world. As Cyrus continued to reign, the land of Persia remained steady beneath his care, and far beyond its borders, lives began to change, guided by choices made with wisdom, patience, and quiet determination. Far from the palaces and courts of Persia, beyond the steady governance of Cyrus, there lived a people whose hearts were turned toward a distant city. In Babylon, along wide rivers and quiet canals, the people of Judah carried memories that had never faded. Though years had passed since they were taken from Jerusalem, The image of their homeland remained clear and tender in their minds, like a lamp kept burning through long nights. Their days unfolded gently among foreign streets and gardens. They built homes, raised children, and learned the language of the land, yet their deepest thoughts returned often to Zion. Jerusalem was spoken of in soft voices, remembered not with bitterness, but with longing shaped by faith. Parents told their children of stone walls warmed by sunlight, of narrow paths leading upward toward the temple, of songs once sung during pilgrim festivals. These stories were shared slowly, as if to preserve their shape and meaning. In the evenings, when the heat of the day faded, families gathered near the rivers. The waters flowed quietly, reflecting the first stars as they appeared in the sky. There, the people of Judah sat together, listening to the gentle movement of the current. Some held scrolls carefully unrolled, tracing familiar words with reverent fingers. Others closed their eyes and prayed silently, letting memory and hope mingle like breath upon still air. The psalms they had carried with them were not forgotten. They were spoken softly, not as cries of despair, but as steady expressions of trust. Though the temple lay far away, prayer still rose from faithful hearts. The God who had called Abraham, who had led Israel through wilderness and promise, was not confined to any one place. This knowledge brought quiet comfort during the long waiting. Life in Babylon continued with calm routines. The exiles worked as craftsmen, scribes, farmers, and merchants. They were known for diligence and integrity, qualities shaped by generations of teaching. Even as they contributed to the life of the empire, they remained distinct, holding fast to Sabbath rest, to dietary laws, to the remembrance of covenant. These practices became gentle anchors, keeping their identity steady amid surrounding change. At night, beneath vast skies filled with stars, the longing for Jerusalem grew strongest. The heavens above Babylon were wide and luminous, reminding them of the promise given to Abraham, that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars. In these moments, hope settled quietly into the soul. Time had passed, yet the promises of God had not weakened. They were not forgotten, only unfolding at their appointed pace. Elders spoke calmly of the prophets, of words spoken long before exile came. Jeremiah had written of 70 years, a season that would pass like a measured breath. Ezekiel had spoken of renewal and return, of hearts restored and a people gathered again. These words were not recited with urgency, but with steady assurance, like seeds planted deep, waiting patiently for rain. Children grew up hearing Jerusalem described as a place both real and sacred. They learned its name alongside their prayers. Even those born in Babylon felt a quiet pull toward a city they had never seen. It lived within them through stories, songs, and the reverent way their parents spoke of it. This shared memory created a bond stronger than distance. The waiting itself became part of their faith. They learned to trust without seeing, to hope without striving. Each passing season carried the same gentle rhythm, yet beneath it all stirred an expectation shaped by prayer. God had moved kings before. He had opened seas and softened hearts. The exiles believed that in time the path home would open again. So they waited with calm resolve. They prayed beneath starlit skies. They remembered Jerusalem not as a place lost forever, but as a promise held in careful trust. In the stillness of Babylonian nights, hope remained alive, quiet and enduring, preparing the way for what was soon to come. While the prayers of the exiles continued to rise quietly beneath the night sky, something gentle was also unfolding far away in the halls of power. In the heart of the Persian kingdom, the thoughts of King Cyrus were being shaped in ways unseen. His days were filled with matters of governance, with councils, records, and decrees, yet beneath these responsibilities there stirred a growing awareness that his authority rested under a greater hand. Cyrus was a man accustomed to reflection. He considered the histories of the lands he ruled, and listened carefully when ancient writings were placed before him. Among these were the words of the prophets of Judah, preserved with care through years of exile. As he encountered these writings, their meanings settled upon him slowly. They spoke of a God who formed light and created darkness, who directed the course of nations and called rulers by name. In these words, Cyrus found his own name written long before his birth, spoken with purpose and intention. This realization did not come with fear or confusion. It came with clarity. The God of heaven, whom the writings proclaimed, had granted him kingdoms and entrusted him with responsibility. Cyrus did not respond with haste. He allowed the understanding to deepen, weighing his actions with the same patience that had guided his rule. He recognized that true strength did not lie in holding people captive, but in allowing order, restoration, and peace to take root. In the quiet of his court, Cyrus began to plan. His decisions were thoughtful, shaped by wisdom rather than impulse. He considered the condition of the people of Judah, their longing for their ancestral city, and the promise tied to their place of worship. He understood that Jerusalem was more than stone and walls. It was the center of their devotion, the place where their prayers had once risen like incense. With calm resolve, Cyrus prepared a decree. It was written with care and spoken with authority, yet its tone carried generosity rather than command. He proclaimed that the Lord, the God of heaven, had given him all the kingdoms of the earth, and had charged him to build a house at Jerusalem. Those among the people of Judah who desired to return were free to go. No force compelled them. No burden restrained them. The path was opened with intention and grace. This decree moved gently through the empire, carried by messengers along well-kept roads. Its words reached Babylon without disturbance, like a breeze stirring still air. When the exiles heard it, the meaning settled slowly into their hearts. Permission had been granted. The waiting had not been in vain. What had been spoken by the prophets was now unfolding through the hand of a foreign king, guided quietly by God. Cyrus did more than grant permission. He restored what had been taken. The sacred vessels once removed from the temple were brought out with care and counted thoughtfully. They were entrusted to leaders among the people of Judah, to be carried back to their rightful place. In addition, support was encouraged. Neighbors were invited to contribute silver, gold, livestock, and goods, offering help freely and without compulsion. Everything was arranged with order. Leaders were appointed. Records were kept. The movement of people was organized so that the journey could be undertaken with care and preparation. There was no urgency pressed upon them, only a steady invitation to rise and return when ready. The unfolding of events carried the same calm rhythm that marked Cyrus's reign. Though Cyrus himself did not walk the road to Jerusalem, his role was clear. He had listened to the quiet guidance of God and responded with obedience. His actions allowed ancient promises to step into present reality. Without spectacle or force, he became an instrument of restoration. Across the empire, the exiles began to prepare, their hearts stirred yet steady. What had once seemed distant now stood before them, not as a sudden change, but as a carefully opened door. And in this gentle unfolding, the purpose of God moved forward, guided through wisdom, patience, and a king willing to listen. With the decree set in place and preparations carefully made, the people of Judah began to gather for a journey long held in their hearts. Families rose early in the mornings, packing what they could carry, folding garments with care, and securing precious scrolls that had travelled with them through years of waiting. There was no rush in their movements. Each step was taken thoughtfully, as though the road itself deserved reverence. As they set out from Babylon, the land opened gently before them. Wide plains stretched beneath soft skies, and rivers flowed alongside their paths, steady and clear. The sound of water moving over smooth stones accompanied their steps, offering a quiet rhythm that eased both body and mind. Children walked close to their parents, listening to stories of the city ahead, while elders moved steadily, leaning on staffs worn smooth by time. The journey unfolded day by day with calm consistency. At dawn, light spread slowly across the landscape, touching tents and packs with warm color. Birds rose from the fields, their songs drifting lightly across the air. Travelers paused to breathe deeply, drawing strength from the cool morning breeze before continuing along the dusty roads that led westward. Along the way, they passed through valleys where grasses swayed gently and hills that rose in soft curves against the horizon. Shepherds watched flocks nearby, offering nods of quiet acknowledgment as the travelers moved past. There was a shared understanding in these small moments, a recognition of lives shaped by patience and trust. Rivers became familiar companions on the journey. Their banks offered places of rest, where families paused to drink and wash, listening to the gentle flow that mirrored the steady progress of their own steps. Reflections shimmered on the water's surface, capturing the sky above and reminding them of the God who watched over both heaven and earth. In the evenings, camps were formed with care. Fires were lit, not large or loud, but steady enough to provide warmth and light. Meals were shared simply, accompanied by quiet conversation and moments of reflection. Psalms were spoken softly, not as formal recitations, but as natural expressions of gratitude and hope. The words rose into the night air, carried upward among the stars. Sleep came gently after long days of walking. The ground beneath them felt firm and reliable, and the sky above seemed vast and protective. Dreams were filled with images of Jerusalem, shaped by stories passed down through generations. Though many had never seen the city, its presence felt near, almost within reach. As the journey continued, the landscape shifted subtly. The air grew drier, the hills more defined. Olive trees appeared along the paths, their silvery leaves catching the light. Vines clung to trellises near small settlements, offering signs of cultivation and care. Each change in scenery signaled that they were drawing closer to the land promised to their ancestors. The rhythm of walking became familiar, almost meditative. Footsteps pressed into the earth in unison, creating a shared cadence that carried them forward. There was comfort in this movement, a sense that every step was part of a larger design, guided by purpose rather than chance. Among the travelers were leaders appointed to guide and support. They spoke with calm voices, offering direction without force. Decisions were made with consensus and care, ensuring that the journey remained orderly and peaceful. Even challenges were met with patience, addressed quietly and resolved without disruption. Throughout the journey, gratitude settled deeply into the hearts of the people. The road itself became a place of renewal. With each mile traveled, the weight of exile seemed to lighten, replaced by steady anticipation. The past was honored without sorrow, and the future approached without fear. Dust clung to garments and sandals, yet it was welcomed as a sign of progress. Every grain marked a step closer to home. The journey was not hurried, nor was it burdensome. It unfolded like a gentle procession, guided by faith and sustained by hope, carrying a people steadily toward the city that had lived within them for so long. When the long journey came to rest among the hills of Judah, the people stood quietly upon familiar ground. Jerusalem lay before them, marked by memory and promise. Its streets were worn, its walls weathered by time, yet the place held a sacred stillness. The heart of the city, where the house of the Lord had once stood, drew them inward with gentle force. They did not rush. They walked slowly, taking in the stones, the slopes, the open sky above the mount where worship had once risen like morning light. Before any building began, the people set their hearts in order. An altar was raised on its former foundation, and offerings were made according to the law of Moses. The familiar rhythms of worship returned quietly, grounding them in what had been preserved through exile. Smoke from the offerings lifted calmly into the air, and prayers followed, steady and reverent, filling the space with renewed devotion. When the time came to rebuild the temple itself, the work began with care. Foundations were laid deliberately, stone by stone, aligned with what had been before. The people gathered as the first measurements were taken. Some wept softly as they remembered the former house. Others stood in quiet awe, feeling gratitude settle deeply within them. The sounds of labor were gentle and purposeful, marked by cooperation rather than urgency. Skilled workers shaped wood and stone with patient hands. Cedars were brought from Lebanon, floated along the sea and carried inland, just as they had been in earlier generations. Every material was handled with respect, knowing it would become part of a place set apart. There was joy in the work itself, found in the simple act of contributing to something sacred. Men and women labored side by side, each according to ability. Some carried water, others prepared food. Children watched attentively, learning through observation the meaning of service and faith. Elders offered guidance, their voices calm and steady, ensuring that traditions were honored and the work remained true to its purpose. As the days passed, the structure began to rise. Walls took shape. Spaces once empty now held form and intention. Each completed section brought a quiet sense of fulfillment. The people paused often, stepping back to take in what had been done, not with pride but with humble gratitude. When the foundation of the temple was finished, a gathering was held. Priests stood in their garments, and Levites took their places with cymbals. They praised the Lord according to the directions given long before, singing of his goodness and enduring mercy. The sound carried across the city, not loud or overwhelming, but steady and sincere. It was a sound shaped by patience and trust. The work did not move quickly, yet it moved faithfully. Seasons passed. The people learned again the discipline of waiting, of continuing without discouragement. Their strength came not from speed, but from devotion. Each day of labor was an offering, each completed task a quiet prayer. Though challenges arose, they were met with resolve rather than unrest. The people returned again and again to the purpose that had brought them home. They remembered the words of the prophets and the faithfulness of God that had guided them through exile and return. This remembrance steadied their hands and calmed their thoughts. As the temple neared completion, a sense of peace settled over the work. The structure stood as a testimony not only of stone and timber, but of hearts aligned with God. It was a place shaped by obedience and care, built without haste, grounded in reverence. The rebuilding of the temple became a shared act of worship. It restored more than a building. It renewed identity and connection. In the quiet dedication of the people, the sacred space once again took form, ready to receive prayers that would rise gently from Jerusalem for generations to come. With the sacred work underway, guidance was needed to keep hearts steady and efforts aligned. Among the people stood 2 leaders appointed for this season, each carrying responsibility with humility and care. Zerubbabel, descendant of David and governor of Judah, walked among the builders with a calm presence. Joshua, son of Jehozadak and high priest, served alongside him, attentive to matters of worship and devotion. Together they formed a quiet balance of leadership, one tending to order and direction, the other guarding the spiritual life of the people. Zerubbabel did not rule from a distance. He moved through the city and the work sites, observing carefully, listening more than speaking. His authority rested not in command, but in example. He understood the weight of history that rested upon Jerusalem and upon his own lineage. Rather than pressing for swift completion, he encouraged steady progress, knowing that renewal required patience. His decisions were measured, shaped by consultation and thoughtful planning, ensuring that resources were used wisely and people were supported in their labor. Joshua carried the responsibilities of the priesthood with quiet reverence. He prepared the priests for service and ensured that worship remained central to daily life. His presence reminded the people that the rebuilding of stone and wood was inseparable from the rebuilding of hearts. With gentle instruction, he guided offerings, prayers, and observances, restoring rhythms that had been preserved through exile. His voice was calm, his movements deliberate, grounding the community in practices that brought peace and focus. Together, Zerubbabel and Joshua fostered unity. When questions arose, they sought understanding rather than division. When uncertainty appeared, they returned the people to the promises spoken by the prophets. Their leadership did not eliminate challenges, but it softened their weight. The people felt seen and guided, encouraged to continue with confidence. In gatherings, Zerubbabel spoke of responsibility and trust. He reminded the community that they were not merely rebuilding for themselves, but for generations to come. His words carried clarity without urgency, inspiring commitment without pressure. Joshua followed with prayer and instruction, anchoring those words in devotion. This partnership allowed governance and worship to move together, neither overshadowing the other. Their courage was quiet but enduring. When opposition sought to discourage the work, they did not respond with fear or anger. They remained steady, returning again and again to the purpose that had brought them home. Their confidence rested in obedience, in the knowledge that the God who had stirred Cyrus to act continued to watch over the work in Jerusalem. Daily life under their guidance took on a gentle rhythm. Labor continued with consistency. Worship remained central. Families found reassurance in the visible steadiness of their leaders. Children grew accustomed to seeing Zerubbabel and Joshua among them, not elevated by distance but present and attentive. This closeness built trust and strengthened resolve. Zerubbabel kept careful records, ensuring that tasks were organized and that each group knew its role. He honored skilled workers and supported those in quieter roles, understanding that every contribution mattered. Joshua ensured that purity and preparation were maintained, guiding the priests through their duties with patience and clarity. His instruction was firm yet kind, rooted in the law and shaped by compassion. In moments of reflection, both leaders turned to prayer. Their guidance flowed from dependence rather than self-assurance. This reliance shaped the tone of the community, encouraging humility and cooperation. The people learned that leadership grounded in faith brought stability and peace. Under their care, the work continued without haste. Stones were set with intention. Spaces were prepared with reverence. The city slowly regained its shape, not only in structure but in spirit. Zerubbabel and Joshua led not by force but by faithfulness, carrying the community toward renewal with steady hearts and gentle hands. As the work in Jerusalem continued under steady guidance, events within the Persian Empire once again turned quietly toward the people of Judah. A new king now sat upon the throne, Darius, ruler of vast lands and keeper of order across the empire. His reign was marked by structure, careful administration, and respect for law. Under his authority, records were preserved, decrees examined, and justice sought through established process rather than impulse. Questions regarding the rebuilding of the temple reached his court through formal channels. Officials from the surrounding regions, observing the work in Jerusalem, sent inquiries to determine whether such construction had truly been authorized. Their message was measured, not hostile, requesting clarity rather than confrontation. In response, Darius did not act hastily. He ordered a search of the royal archives, trusting the written record to guide his judgment. Scrolls were brought out and examined with care. In the citadel of Ecbatana, among the preserved documents of earlier reigns, the decree of Cyrus was found. Its words were clear and unaltered. Cyrus had indeed authorized the rebuilding of the house of God in Jerusalem. He had ordered that expenses be paid from the royal treasury and that sacred vessels be returned. The record rested quietly in the archives, waiting for the moment it would once again shape the course of events. When Darius received this confirmation, his response was calm and decisive. He honored the decree of his predecessor without hesitation. Recognizing the authority under which the work had begun, he extended his own support, strengthening what had already been set in motion. His decree was sent with clarity and assurance, reinforcing stability rather than uncertainty. Darius commanded that the work on the temple should not be hindered. Governors and officials were instructed to keep their distance from the construction, allowing it to continue without interference. This directive carried weight throughout the region, establishing a clear boundary that protected the community in Jerusalem. The presence of imperial authority became a shield, providing peace and confidence. More than permission was granted. Darius ordered that the expenses for rebuilding be paid fully and promptly from royal revenues collected in the region. Supplies for offerings were also specified, ensuring that worship could continue according to the law. Bulls, rams, lambs, wheat, salt, wine, and oil were to be provided regularly, without delay. This provision was not framed as obligation, but as support, allowing devotion to proceed without anxiety. The decree carried a tone of respect for the God of heaven. Darius acknowledged the purpose of these provisions, that prayers might be offered for the life of the king and his sons. In this, there was a recognition that peace within the empire was strengthened through reverence and goodwill. Authority and faith were not set against each other, but allowed to exist in quiet cooperation. When the decree reached Jerusalem, its effect was immediate and gentle. Assurance settled over the people. The uncertainty that can slow the hands of builders was lifted. Labor continued with renewed steadiness, not from urgency, but from confidence. The presence of imperial support affirmed that the path they walked was secure. The atmosphere surrounding the work grew calmer still. Knowing that the king himself had spoken in their favor, the people returned to their tasks with lightened hearts. Stone was set with care. Wood was shaped patiently. Worship continued without interruption. The rhythms of daily life regained a sense of ease, supported by the knowledge that order had been established far beyond their city walls. Darius's decree reflected the broader character of the Persian Empire during this time. It was an empire that valued structure and continuity, where written law guided action and where earlier commitments were honored. This consistency created a landscape in which communities could flourish according to their traditions, protected by the reach of a stable rule. Under this covering of peace, the work in Jerusalem advanced steadily. The temple rose not only through the hands of the builders, but through the quiet alignment of divine purpose and human governance. The favor shown through Darius reinforced what had already been promised, allowing renewal to take shape within a framework of security and calm. In this way, the empire once again served as an instrument of preservation rather than disruption. Through careful decree and thoughtful provision, stability was maintained. The people of Judah continued their work without fear, upheld by an authority that recognized the value of order, faith, and quiet perseverance. Beyond Jerusalem, across the wide and orderly reaches of the Persian Empire, daily life continued with a calm and measured rhythm. The stability established by wise rule allowed ordinary moments to unfold without disturbance. In cities and villages alike, mornings began quietly, with soft light spreading across courtyards and gardens where water trickled gently through narrow channels cut into stone. Gardens were places of rest and balance. Fruit trees stood in careful rows, their branches heavy with figs, pomegranates, and dates. Vines climbed along walls, their leaves stirring lightly in the breeze. Gardeners moved slowly among them, tending soil and trimming branches with patient hands. The scent of blossoms mixed with the coolness of damp earth, creating an atmosphere that invited unhurried thought and quiet contentment. In the marketplaces, activity rose gradually rather than abruptly. Merchants arranged their goods with care, spreading woven fabrics, polished metalwork, baskets of grain, and jars of oil. Voices remained low and respectful. Exchanges were made without haste, guided by custom and mutual trust. Coins passed from hand to hand, their soft sound blending into the gentle murmur of conversation. Even in trade, there was a sense of order that eased the spirit. Artisans worked in shaded spaces along the streets or within open workshops. Potters shaped clay on slow-turning wheels, their hands steady and practiced. Weavers guided threads through looms, creating patterns refined over generations. Metalworkers heated tools carefully, shaping them with precision rather than force. Each craft followed its own rhythm, passed down through observation and instruction, producing objects meant to endure. Scholars gathered in quiet rooms or beneath covered porticos, where scrolls were unrolled and examined. Writing was done slowly, each mark deliberate. Knowledge was preserved through patience and repetition. Discussions unfolded in calm tones, focused on understanding rather than argument. The pursuit of learning was treated as a steady path rather than a race, valued for its ability to bring clarity and wisdom. Along the roads, travelers moved at a measured pace. Messengers carried sealed letters, their routes well known and maintained. Caravans progressed steadily, camels stepping in unison, their loads balanced carefully. Way stations offered water and rest, allowing journeys to continue without strain. The movement of people and goods flowed like a river, guided by structure and care. Homes reflected the same gentle order. Families gathered for meals prepared with simple ingredients and shared without ceremony. Bread was broken, bowls were passed, and stories were exchanged quietly. Evenings brought moments of reflection. Lamps were lit, casting soft light across walls and floors. The pace of the day eased naturally into rest. Music could be heard at times, played softly on strings or flutes. It did not demand attention, but added warmth to the air. Songs told of seasons, of work, of gratitude for stability and provision. They were familiar melodies, repeated across years, grounding those who heard them in continuity. Children learned through watching and doing. They followed parents through daily tasks, absorbing rhythms of labor and rest. Their games were simple, shaped by imagination and space rather than noise. Laughter rose briefly and then settled, leaving behind a sense of ease. Throughout the empire, this quiet hum of life continued uninterrupted. Law and administration provided structure, but daily peace was sustained by countless small acts of care. Gardens were watered, tools were mended, Scrolls were preserved. Meals were shared. These ordinary moments formed the foundation upon which greater events rested. This atmosphere of calm extended beyond borders and cities, shaping the world in which the people of Judah lived and worked. The same order that protected their rebuilding also allowed life elsewhere to flourish without fear. In this steady environment, history moved forward not through constant upheaval, but through patient continuity, where beauty and purpose were found in the gentle unfolding of each day. Even as the Persian Empire extended its steady reach across lands and peoples, the exiles of Judah maintained a quiet rhythm of devotion. Their lives moved within the structure of the empire, yet their hearts were anchored to the God of their ancestors. Each day, they found gentle ways to honor the traditions carried through generations, allowing faith to flourish amid a foreign yet stable world. Mornings often began with prayer, the words of the Psalms rising softly into the cool air. Families gathered within their homes or courtyards, voices blending in unhurried harmony. The prayers were not hurried, not spoken to impress others, but offered with sincerity and calm, each syllable measured and steady. In these moments, the heart felt a peaceful alignment with history, with covenant, and with the enduring promises of God. Study followed naturally. Scrolls were unrolled carefully, inked letters preserved through careful handling. Fathers and mothers, elders and teachers, guided attentive hands along the texts. Children learned to trace the lines, absorbing not only the words but the rhythm of devotion itself. The act of learning became a meditation, a gentle repetition that strengthened memory and spirit alike. Through study, understanding deepened, and hope remained alive without urgency. Evenings brought reflection beneath skies dotted with stars. The exiles would pause in courtyards or on hillsides, looking upward to the heavens that stretched over both Persia and Judah. The vast expanse reminded them of the God who held all things in balance, whose care extended beyond borders, beyond time, and beyond kings. In this quiet gaze, longing for home blended with gratitude for the present. Hearts rested in the knowledge that their God was attentive, that prayers were heard, and that restoration was unfolding according to divine timing. Community life nurtured faith in subtle ways. Festivals and observances continued, each carefully timed according to the laws preserved from generations past. Schedules were maintained, offerings prepared with attention, and songs sung softly, not to overwhelm but to remind all present of the sacred continuity of their heritage. Through these acts, the people reinforced connection, both to each other and to God, cultivating calm and consistency in the midst of a vast empire. Daily tasks were imbued with mindfulness. Cooking, cleaning, tending gardens, and working in crafts became opportunities for devotion. Each action was carried out with care, a gentle reminder that faith need not be confined to formal worship alone. Every moment could reflect trust and gratitude, grounding the soul in the steady rhythm of ordinary life. Even public spaces were approached with reverence. When traveling through markets or walking along city streets, the exiles observed quiet discipline in speech and behavior. They remembered that their identity rested not only in laws or traditions, but in the practice of living faithfully in all circumstances. Their calm presence became a reflection of the inner peace nurtured through prayer, study, and reflection. In moments of decision or uncertainty, the exiles returned to sacred texts for guidance. They meditated upon promises of return, deliverance, and divine favor. Each verse was read slowly, contemplated thoughtfully, and allowed to shape choices with patience rather than haste. Even small actions were framed within the larger story of God's faithfulness, providing both stability and hope. Nightfall offered further stillness. Lamps were lit with gentle care, illuminating scrolls or quiet spaces of reflection. Some knelt in prayer, others simply sat in contemplation, allowing the calm of evening to deepen their connection to God. The rhythmic pattern of light and shadow, labor and rest, reinforced the sense that life, even in exile, could be balanced and full of meaning. Through these quiet practices, faith became a living, breathing presence within the empire. It did not rely on spectacle or urgency, but on consistent, gentle devotion. The exiles preserved their identity not by force, but by steady attention to God's law, prayer, and the nurturing of community. Their hearts remained centered, aligned with purpose, even amidst the grandeur and order of a far-reaching empire. In this way, life in Persia was not a distraction, but a setting for spiritual depth. Within the calm of gardens, streets, workshops, and homes, faith persisted. Quiet reflection, study, and prayer sustained the people, creating an inner landscape of peace that carried them steadily through days and nights, drawing them closer to the fulfillment of the promises long held in their hearts. The story of Persia, with its kings, exiles, and devoted communities, holds gentle lessons that unfold quietly for those who pause to notice. Life moved with intention under rulers like Cyrus and Darius, yet the movement of events was not hurried. Each decision was measured, each action deliberate, and through this calm order, wisdom became evident. Observing the unfolding of history in this way, one can see that true guidance often comes softly, without noise or urgency, shaping lives through steady care rather than force. Leadership in Persia offers one such lesson. Cyrus and Darius were not rulers who relied solely on power or intimidation. Their strength was expressed through discernment, respect for law, and attention to the needs of the people. Decisions were made thoughtfully, taking into account both the present and the broader purposes that guided the world. This kind of leadership invites reflection. That influence is most enduring when it is rooted in understanding and tempered by patience. Quiet authority can shape events as surely as loud command, yet leaves space for the hearts of others to respond freely. Obedience also emerges as a gentle theme. The exiles in Babylon and later in Jerusalem followed divine guidance and royal decrees with careful attention. Their acts of preparation, labor, and worship were not performed in haste or fear, but in alignment with instruction and covenant. Obedience here was an exercise in trust, a recognition that order and purpose often unfold slowly. By moving steadily in accordance with what had been commanded, the people contributed to the restoration of their community without being overwhelmed by the magnitude of the task. Patience threads through the story as well. From the years of exile to the careful journey home, from the laying of temple stones to the management of daily life under Persian rule, every moment required the ability to wait and proceed without frustration. Patience was not a passive state, but an active cultivation of rhythm and persistence. It was expressed in the daily steps of travel, the careful shaping of stone and wood, and the maintenance of prayer and study. In these repeated gentle acts, the value of time and steadiness becomes clear. that lasting outcomes are often built quietly, layer upon layer, guided by faith and foresight. Trust completes this quiet cycle of lessons. The exiles trusted that promises would be fulfilled, that the God who had called their ancestors remained present, and that the provisions of kings like Cyrus and Darius were aligned with a higher purpose. This trust did not remove effort or care, but it lent peace to every step, allowing hearts to remain calm even when the road seemed long or uncertain. Through trust, life acquired a gentle steadiness, and the weight of responsibility became manageable, infused with hope rather than anxiety. Together, these qualities, leadership, obedience, patience, and trust, form a pattern visible in both human and divine action. They remind those who reflect quietly that wisdom often comes through consistent, thoughtful practice rather than dramatic moments. Guidance may arrive softly, opportunities unfold gradually, and growth is nurtured in small, deliberate ways. In the stillness of observation, one can perceive the subtle ways that divine purpose and human diligence intertwine. The history of Persia thus serves as a mirror for reflection. It encourages contemplation of one's own actions, responses, and the pace at which life progresses. By observing the gentle guidance of kings, the steadfast devotion of exiles, and the orderly unfolding of events, it becomes possible to see that life's deepest lessons are often woven into the quiet rhythms of history. Each measured step, each act of care, and each faithful decision offers insight into living with wisdom and grace. In the calm unfolding of these stories, the mind can rest upon truths that endure. Patience brings clarity, trust fosters peace, obedience shapes character, and thoughtful leadership creates stability. Each element flows into the next, forming a tapestry of understanding that is both steady and serene, inviting reflection and quiet appreciation of the gentle guidance present throughout history. With the temple rising steadily, a sense of calm settled over the people of Judah. Daily life began to find its own gentle rhythm. Families returned to their homes, tending gardens and caring for animals with quiet attention. Each morning brought small tasks performed with care, from preparing simple meals to tending the spaces where children played under soft sunlight. The pace of life allowed reflection and gratitude to weave naturally into the hours. The rituals of worship, once disrupted by exile, became part of the familiar flow of the day. Offerings were prepared and presented with thoughtful devotion. Songs and prayers arose in measured tones, filling the city with a serene presence. Each act, though simple, carried a sense of continuity and connection, linking the people to their history and their God. The repetition of these practices provided comfort, establishing a steady heartbeat beneath the work of rebuilding and living. Neighbors and families moved quietly among one another, exchanging greetings, helping where needed, and sharing in the joy of restored community. Markets opened with a soft bustle, gentle laughter mingling with the hum of conversation. Artisans shaped tools, pottery, and woven fabrics with steady hands, their craft reflecting both skill and patience. Children learned by watching, participating in daily life under the guidance of elders whose experience offered both wisdom and calm reassurance. Evenings brought a natural pause. Lamps were lit, casting warm, golden light across homes and streets. Families gathered to eat and speak softly of the day's accomplishments. The steady rhythm of labor and rest created a comforting pattern. reflection and quiet gratitude intertwined, reminding all that life had been restored not through haste, but through deliberate care. In this gentle return to routine, the people discovered that security, faith, and community could coexist. Each step taken, each task completed, and each moment of prayer contributed to a life that was both meaningful and peaceful. Days moved forward with harmony, achievements small and large acknowledged with quiet satisfaction. The city of Jerusalem, renewed and alive, became a place where calm diligence and gentle devotion guided every hour, forming a rhythm of life both steady and serene. The days in Jerusalem settled into quiet harmony, each moment flowing gently into the next. The people moved with calm purpose, their hands shaping stone and wood, their voices rising softly in prayer and song. The city, once still and waiting, now hummed with steady life, a rhythm both soothing and enduring. Within this peace, the lessons of faith, patience, and gentle leadership rested softly, like a light breeze over calm waters, reminding all of the quiet strength that guides hearts and hands alike. There is comfort in observing how history unfolded with care, how exiles returned and rebuilt not only structures but lives, how leaders guided with wisdom and faith rather than force. Each act, small or large, contributed to a tapestry of order and hope. The prayers whispered beneath the stars, the stones placed with care in the temple, and the songs of devotion all speak of trust in a plan greater than the moment, showing that steady attention, quiet courage, and faithful service shape a life that endures. In this calm, it is easy to reflect on the gentle guidance woven through the lives of Cyrus, Darius, Zerubbabel, and Joshua. Their example encourages hearts to move with patience, to act with care, and to cultivate trust in the unfolding of events. Observing their wisdom allows a mind to rest, recognizing that progress and restoration are often achieved through steady persistence and thoughtful devotion rather than haste. May these images of gardens, markets, homes, and sacred spaces linger softly, allowing a sense of peace to deepen. Feel the steady rhythm of daily life, the calm diligence of rebuilding, and the harmony of community. Let this gentle story of Persia in the Bible remain in the mind as a quiet companion, carrying warmth and reflection into dreams. If the calm and lessons of this journey have brought comfort, you are welcome to share this gentle story with others. Comments are invited to quietly reflect on which part brought peace to your heart, and subscribing helps continue the creation of these soothing tales. Sharing allows the gentle rhythm of faith, hope, and patient wisdom to reach more hearts, letting quiet stories flow softly into the world. Carry the peace, the patience, and the faithfulness of those who walked before gently with you. Let the lessons of steady leadership, quiet devotion, and trust in divine guidance rest within, providing a calm foundation for thoughts and dreams. Drift naturally into the stillness that this story has offered, feeling safe, reflective, and serene, surrounded by the enduring presence of hope and gentle care.